Hey everyone, thanks for joining me tonight on Public Eye Outdoors. Tonight I want to do a video on the steps I take to do my own arrows. I've just recently got half dozen of the Hunter 300 series gold tips, and I decided that I wanted to do a 4 Fletch on my arrows now. So I've got the jig to do it now, and I also wanted to kind of dabble with the F.O.C. And the F.O.C. is basically the front of center on an arrow, your weight distribution from the forward to the back. So you want that F.O.C. to be more towards the front, much like a lawn dart. The old lawn darts, when you'd throw them, all the weight was towards the front, and your big wings were on the back side to control the flight. It's the same idea with your arrows. If you got your arrows too light up front, they're going to kind of do a wave and lose that momentum carrying forward. So I'm not an expert by any means, so the easiest way I can explain it is just you want more of that weight towards the front to carry the momentum, and you also have the kinetic energy with a more weight forward arrow. So what I'm going to dabble with tonight is I'm going to take these 300 series gold tips, cut them down to the length that I need, and we are going to go to a 4 Fletch, like I said, and we are also going to be putting a 100 grain insert, brass insert, in the front of these. Okay. Now what this is going to do is allow me to lighten up on my field tips and my broadheads. So if I've got, and I've already done the math on this, between the arrows themselves, they weigh about 8.6 grams or grains, I think 8.4 or 8.6. And then you've got a 100 grain insert. Each one of my boning flights, blazer vanes, are about 6. And the wraps, the inserts, all that stuff I've figured up to where my F.O.C. should be around 13.8 or 13.6, which is not real bad. It's not a real high F.O.C. really. It's probably about mediocre, to be honest with you. Some guys can go with a real light F.O.C. and get it to work like magic for them. Other guys really go for that heavier F.O.C. up into 16, 18, and I just decided, I was kind of curious what mine would be with these 100 grain inserts, but with the tips and all that, with the 200 grains up front, and with my 4 blazers on the back and my wraps and all that good stuff, it came out to only be around 13 point something. So it's not as high as you would probably expect. So I'm really anxious to get this started, and we're going to do it together tonight on Public Eye Outdoors, and you can follow me doing it. Stay tuned. So our first order of business with this, I'm going to put on my glasses. Don't laugh at me. I look kind of nerdy with them on, but first order of business when you're doing your arrows. Now I cut mine down. And this particular set, I'm going to probably end up cutting just one side, because I've already spun test these and kind of got an idea that they're pretty much off on just the insert end. So I'm not going to concern myself too much about cutting off both sides, which if I had some arrows that were kind of wobbly on both sides, I would cut from both sides. Now what what that does is takes out the wobble. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'll zoom you in here. Maybe I will. I can't zoom you. Anyway. So when I spin these, I can see that a lot of my wobble is coming from this side. Okay? And so I'm not going to concern myself with cutting off the other side. And the reason for that is because I kind of want to match these. I want to keep them matched. If I can get away with cutting off on one end of my arrows, I'll do it just for the simple fact that it dresses them up. Because if you cut off of both ends, say you cut an inch or two off of here and you cut 2 or 3 inches off of here, that writing in the middle or off to the one side is going to be offset from your other ones. Which, if you're more concerned about the flight of your arrow, which you should be, instead of the cosmetic looks of it, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the way you should do it, in my opinion. They should be cut from both sides. If you've got wobble on both sides, you cut from both sides. Get rid of as much of that wobble in that arrow shaft as you can possibly get. So you don't concern yourself. If you're going for accuracy and a good flight in your arrows, we're not going to worry about those being together, okay? Because once you cut off a, say you're cutting 1 inch off of here and 2 inches off of this side, because you got more wobble, then you're not going to match up here with your logos. And like I said, that is not a concern of mine. But in this case, I got lucky because all of these arrows, the majority of the wobble is coming from the front side here on all of them. Okay, there's really no wobble to the back side of these at all. So I'll be fortunate enough to be able to cut off one end and make these all match. So I'll get this set up and I'll bring it right back in here and we're going to get started on them. Now, one thing I need to check is last time I cut these, I forgot if I went with the knock inserted in there or if I just cut the shaft. And I think, yeah, that should be 29 with the knock. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started cutting these. Okay, so we've got them all cut to my 29 inches. Now the next thing that I do, and a lot of guys may not do this, but this is one of the more important steps that I think of the process is shoring up your edges on these shafts. So basically what I do is I take the G5 ASD tool, or A5D, whatever they call it. But it's basically got two cutting sides to it. You'll flip this around and it's got a blade here for your metal shafts or your aluminum shafts and your inserts, and then on this side it's got kind of a sandpaper-ish surface, and that's what you use for your carbon. And that's what I'll be doing here, and basically all I do is just take these and run them against that about 2 or 3 turns. Okay, and what that does is that straightens out that cut. So it's, if you put a shaft in the saw and you're coming into it like this, you're cutting a little bit of an angle to to that end. Okay. Best way to take care of this is to turn it as you're cutting, but you're not going to get it perfect just by cutting. So what I like to do is take this and just turn it a few times on that sanding block and get these faces leveled out. Process that I do after I've gotten those edges cleaned up and straightened. I like to clean the shaft, and I don't have. Yeah, I've got this sock here. I'll take rubbing alcohol. I just take and rub that rubbing alcohol on these just to get all that dust and everything off of them. Clean up those tips, get the dust off there, because that's going to be your mortal enemy when it comes to these inserts and flights and stuff and wraps, is all that dust and finger oil. So you want to, well, you don't want to lay it right back where it was. Goofball. So I'll get these all cleaned up. Just go over them once with, boy, stuff's hard on my nose. I can barely breathe. Get those shafts cleaned up so they're dust free and oil free as best you can. And really, this is you know, in the professional world, that is a huge part of the operation, is keeping everything absolutely clean and ready and prepped. But prepping is a huge part of the process. But you know, rubbing alcohol for me works just as good. And you know, they may have cleaners and different things like that, but I found that just simple rubbing alcohol will get rid of a lot of that crap. Okay, so once I've got that done, then it's on to putting the wraps on.